You know that feeling when you've been trying to solve a puzzle your whole life and then someone finally hands you the missing piece? That's exactly what happened to me when I got my dyslexia diagnosis at 58. I'm not going to lie, this is a pretty vulnerable story to share. But if you've ever felt like you're fighting some invisible battle that nobody else can see, maybe this will help you feel a little less alone. Looking back, I spent most of my life feeling like I was slightly out of step with everyone else. School was honestly brutal. You know that nightmare where you have to read out loud in class? That was my actual life, pretty much daily. The words would swim around on the page, letters jumping all over the place, and I'd stumble through sentences while other kids were sniggering. I was that kid who had to read everything 3 times just to get it. My spelling was, let's call it, creative. And don't even get me started on trying to write essays. I could talk your ear off about random stuff, but getting those thoughts down on paper, it was like trying to scoop up water with a sieve. Nothing stayed. I was always more of a visual learner, so what did primary school do? They put me in remedial classes. Did it help? No, not really. The thing is, it wasn't just a school problem. Simple stuff that everyone else breezed through would completely drain me. Filling out forms, following written instructions, even reading emails sometimes. It all felt like climbing a mountain. I got good at finding workarounds and hiding how much I was struggling. The worst part was the voice in my head constantly telling me I was lazy, stupid, or just not trying hard enough. That voice was loud, and it was mean, and it followed me everywhere. So what finally made me seek answers? It wasn't some dramatic moment, more like a slow building pressure that eventually couldn't be ignored anymore. I'd always known I learned differently. I was actually pretty good at creative stuff, problem solving, and thinking outside the box. But put a report in front of me, and suddenly I felt like I was drowning. The real wake-up call came when I stumbled across a post about adult ADHD and then another about dyslexia. Reading those stories was like looking in a mirror. These people were describing exactly what I'd been experiencing my whole life, down to the smallest details. One of my recent jobs involved a lot of reading and writing, emails, letters, case notes, which made me slower than other colleagues. The managers did not understand me and put me on a performance improvement plan. I was still struggling, spelling mistakes, not finding the right word, reading the same piece over and over. The familiar panic set in, but this time something clicked. Instead of just beating myself up like usual, I started wondering, what if this isn't my fault? What if there's a real reason for all this? That tiny shift in thinking from I'm broken to maybe there's an explanation changed everything. Getting diagnosed as an adult is no joke. I spent weeks going down internet rabbit holes, taking online quizzes, which all suggested dyslexia by the way, but I knew I needed the real deal, a proper assessment from someone who actually knew what they were doing. Then I hit the money wall. Professional assessments are expensive, and I was basically stuck. I remember sitting at my computer, heart pounding, writing an email to the British Dyslexia Association asking if they had any funding. They were kind, but couldn't help financially. However, they pointed me toward the Helen Arkell Dyslexia charity, and honestly, that recommendation changed my life. Reaching out to Helen Arkell felt like my last shot. I poured my heart out in that application, explaining how dyslexia was affecting every part of my life. They told me the bursary program wasn't running right then, but they'd put me on a waiting list anyway. Weeks went by. Then out of nowhere I got an email saying I'd been approved. I literally stared at my screen for 5 minutes, not believing it. Someone had actually listened and wanted to help. The actual testing was intense, 3 hours of different evaluations that poked and prodded at all my weak spots. There were moments when I wanted to crawl under the table from frustration, but there was also this weird sense of relief. Finally, someone was really looking at what I'd been dealing with all these years. Waiting for the results was torture. What if they found nothing? What if it really was just me being lazy or not smart enough? Then came the full diagnostic report. Based on your assessment, you do have dyslexia. I'm not ashamed to admit I cried. Hard. But they weren't just sad tears. They were every emotion I'd been carrying for decades, all coming out at once. First came the relief, this overwhelming gut-deep relief that I wasn't broken or stupid or lazy. My brain just worked differently, and there was actual science behind it. But then came the grief. I grieved for that little kid who thought he was stupid. I grieve for the teenager who avoided opportunities because he was scared of failing. I grieve for all those years of self-doubt and anxiety. I hope this gives you a clearer picture of what dyslexia is really like. The most important thing to remember is that you're not alone. There is support out there. Don't struggle in silence. Embrace your dyslexia and don't be afraid to ask for help. I'll drop links below for the Helen Orkel Dyslexia Charity and the British Dyslexia Association, along with the online checklist that first made me realise I might be dyslexic. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of our next upload.